ExpressLRS 4.1 has just released, and if you needed a reason to switch from ExpressLRS 3.x to ExpressLRS 4.x, I think it's finally here. 4.1 has introduced a killer feature that I have wanted since ExpressLRS came out, and I'm going to tell you what it is, as well as all the other, well, there's not actually that much. It's not a big release. All the other cool stuff in ExpressLRS 4.1. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Let's start with all the other stuff that's in 4.1. It's not going to take us very long to go through, and then I'll show you the killer feature that is going to, you're not going to, Okay. Anyway, I'm speechless. ExpressLRS 4.0 reworked the dynamic power algorithm in ExpressLRS to make it a little bit smarter. Dynamic power means that as the receiver gets further away, the transmitter's power turns up, and as the receiver gets closer, the transmitter power turns down. The idea is that you want to keep a good link quality, but you don't need to waste a lot of energy blasting at full power when the transmitter is relatively close. The effect is basically that you save battery power, so your transmitter's battery lasts longer, and you're not just blasting more energy into the air than you really need to, which is good behavior from the RF perspective. In ExpressLRS 4.1, they've tweaked this logic a little bit to let it turn the power down a little more aggressively while still maintaining stable LQ. I haven't tested this out, but basically you should be able to get more battery savings, use less output power than you would have otherwise, and still keep good link quality until, again, the very end when there's no more power to give. If you fly ExpressLRS, you're used to hearing your transmitter say telemetry lost, or sometimes sensor lost. And the reason for this is that occasionally telemetry packets get lost. Not all of the packets get from the receiver to the transmitter or vice versa. This really freaked people out. People just don't like to hear their transmitter yelling at them. They worry that they're going to fail-safe. You should know that the telemetry lost warning doesn't mean you're going to fail-safe. It just means the telemetry packets aren't getting through. Your outbound control packets are probably just fine. And part of the reason for that is that your transmitter is transmitting at like 1 watt, perhaps, whereas the receiver's upstream telemetry transmissions could be as little as 100 milliwatts. It varies depending on the receiver. So it's perfectly normal that your weak telemetry transmission would have some lost packets when your outbound controlled, what you really care about the most, is just fine. In ExpressLRS 4.1, they have reshuffled the telemetry algorithm just a little bit so that it's more tolerant of a couple lost telemetry packets and you're not constantly hearing that telemetry lost warning when nothing is actually wrong. They've tried to make it smart, as in, like, initially it's very conservative and doesn't shout telemetry lost, but then as you get more and more lost packets, it becomes more sensitive to the lost packets and will basically try to warn you when you're actually about to lose telemetry or actually about to fail safe, and not when you're just sitting there on the bench. This is a major quality of life improvement, but would not be enough to make me switch all my drones from 3.x to 4.x. No. If you use ExpressLRS with servos, you may have noticed that the servos are kind of jittery compared to good quality PWM receivers from other manufacturers. And the ExpressLRS devs have done something to try to make this just a little bit better. If you have an ESP8285 processor, then they've done some things to basically make the servos more stable. I don't know what it is. They just better servo. I don't really do a lot with servos anyway, so I just assume this is a good thing. ExpressLRS PWM receivers are often used without a flight controller, and as a result, there's no telemetry to tell the receiver what battery voltage is. They just see 5 volts coming in on the servo plug. Many of them will have a vBat sensor which you wire to battery voltage, and that lets the receiver report battery telemetry back to your handset, just as if you had a flight controller. But the problem is that that's not possible to calibrate. If it's off by 1/10 of a volt or something, you're just basically out of luck. Now, you can calibrate it for receivers with built-in battery voltage measurements. In the web UI, there is a calibration function, and you can change the reading to be whatever you actually want it to be if it's off by a small amount. And there are a couple other little things, but we're not worried about those. I want to get to the key thing, the killer feature that is going to make me switch all my stuff over to 4.1. It is the ability to set the bind phrase from the handset. No longer do you have to go into the web UI or you have to go into the firmware flasher to put your bind phrase on the aircraft, on the transmitter. You can do it all from the Lewis script. Not the ExpressLRS Lewis script. There's actually a separate dedicated Lewis script for managing the bind phrase, and I'm going to show you how to set it up, and we're going to do it right now. So the first thing you need to do is download this new Lua script. It is a separate Lua script. It's not part of the ExpressLRS Lua script. You can download it from this page. It is right here. ELRS bind v2.zip, and I'll put a link to that in the video description where you can download it. Having done that, we're going to plug in USB to our handset, and then we're going to select USB storage. I'm then going to right-click and extract that zip file, and the result will be a window that contains these two folders, scripts and widgets. I'm going to then go to my storage or my SD card on my radio, and you see here scripts and widgets. I'm not going to delete those original files. I'm just going to take these folders, the new folders, and I'm going to drop them in the storage and copy them over, and they will add the necessary stuff to the storage. Having done that, I will press the sys key, and aha, here it is. Here's my new script, the ELRS bind manager, and let's see what I can do. I can request UID, which will read the UID from the transmitter. Here it is right here. This number right here is your UID. Your bind phrase isn't actually used by the system. Your bind phrase is run through a mathematical algorithm to create the UID, and that numerical UID is what's actually used to do your binding. So you can get the UID back out, but you can't get the bind phrase that created the UID. This is a little bit of nerdy detail. But instead what I can do is I can type a bind phrase. Oh my gosh, here on the TX16S Mark III with the big color screen, I actually have a keyboard. I'm going to guess that on a radio with a black and white screen, you're going to end up having to use the jog wheel to type the numbers, but okay. Bind phrase here. And if I type set, I should see this UID here change. Let's find out. Set. Yes, setting transmitter, updating. And it also keeps your bind phrase history. If you have several bind phrases that you use, they will be stored here, and you can easily change between them. I can see this being convenient because it would make it really easy if you have like your fixed wings, your ground models, and your multi-rotors on different bind phrases, which I do that. I don't want to accidentally connect to my ground model, like my RC cars with my TX16S or my GX12. I want to only use my MT12 with the trigger and the wheel. Except I often forget my bind phrase is different for the ground vehicles. Don't remember what it is. This would make it really easy to switch between those bind phrases if you have several common bind phrases that you use. I do know that people have said, well, I don't want my bind phrases being displayed here for anyone to see. That's like a security, I don't know. So like, do I bind phrase here also, also set, and then if I leave and come back, yeah, it remembers them. It also remembers your bind phrase there. It shows it. So if I go bind phrase here, I see it just fills it, and then I hit set, and it goes back and forth. So the way that I would use this, I suppose, is I would set my bind phrase there in the transmitter. I would go to my receiver, and I could just easily do the 3-plug method to put it into bind mode 1, 2, 3. And now it's double blinking, indicating it's in binding. And then having set the bind phrase here, I can hit return and go to my ExpressLRS script and just hit bind. Then we should have, come on buddy. Oh, and then it connects. But there's one more feature here that I haven't showed you. In the web page, they show the ability to set the bind phrase either on the transmitter or the receiver. I suppose the receiver would have to be bound. You would then push the bind phrase to the receiver, and then you would change the bind phrase on the transmitter to the same value. I don't see that option here, and I'm not really sure why. Okay, well, I asked Captain Bry, and he thinks it might be because I have an older version of ExpressLRS on this TX16S. I haven't updated it since I got it. So pause one. I'm going to update EdgeTX to the latest release version and see if that fixes it. You don't need to watch me do that, though. Let's see here. Having flashed to EdgeTX 2.12.2, I will now run the Lua script, and aha, there it is. I can select target, transmitter, or receiver. So then the process for changing the bind phrase on your receiver would be, I will pick my bind phrase, I will choose target receiver, and I will, I can hit unbind. If I just hit unbind, will it automatically go into binding mode? Oh, this is so good. But okay, continue. I'll take my bind phrase and push it to the receiver, And now the receiver will come up and it'll just be blinking because it's searching. And then I will choose that bind phrase with target as the transmitter and set. And now it should just immediately bind. Hold on. Take a second to connect, I'm sure. There we go. And what I can do is I can choose target, receiver, and unbind. And now the receiver will just automatically go into binding mode as soon as it powers up, which will make it easy to bind to another radio. This is such a massive quality of life improvement. If you are going to switch to ExpressLRS 4.1, you're also going to get a whole bunch of new features in ExpressLRS 4.0. And if you're coming from 3.x, you're going to want to know about that. By the way, fair warning, 3.x and 4.x are not compatible. So if you do update your transmitter to ExpressLRS 4.x, you'll need to update all your receivers, or you'll need to have a separate radio or a separate module that's still back on 3.x, or you'll have to flash between 3.x and 4.x. Don't do that. But once you make the jump, you're probably just going to want to make the jump on all your devices. If you want to learn more about what's new in ExpressLRS 4.x, I have a release overview. It's a lot more than just here, and some of it's pretty major. I'll put a card on screen and a link in the video description below to that as well. If you want to see more about that ExpressLRS flashing app that I was using, I've got a video about that. Card on screen, link in the video description below. I'll see you there.